let's talk real briefly about, ballads, slow tempos. Even though we're playing at a very slow tempo, the faster subdivisions are still there. So if it's 60 BPM, we can imply 120 BPM. We can also imply 240 BPM. And so then the lines that you play are kind of like you're switching your brain into fast tempo mode temporarily. And of course, because it's a ballad and it's a lot longer, the bars are longer, you need to make sure you have a good amount of lines and vocabulary in order to play lines long enough to flow through the changes on a ballad. So I'm going to show you an example over kind of a slower tempo, and I'm going to go into faster subdivisions, including triplets and 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these lines you could hear would actually work quite nicely if we were in a tempo that wasn't slower, basically double the tempo that we were at. And it's kind of, like I said, you got to switch into the mode where you're thinking of that faster subdivision, and you need to study up on lines that really connect well through the progression in order to make it natural. One general principle to stick to when you're studying up on how to do this is looking at how you can easily switch into the next chord from your line. So if it's a D minor going to G7 and you're playing kind of a D minor idea, then once the harmony goes to G7, what is the closest available note that will get you to a G7 idea? Okay, so for example, just really slowly, if we're doing D minor to G7, if we started with a basic arpeggiatic idea over D minor. Okay, so that's D minor. Now, what do I have to do to get to G7 going to C major? I can go, so go up a half step into a kind of altered dominant, or the flat 5 also is a good option. And basically pay attention to where you're at. And figure out the most natural way based on the chord shape to guide you back to the resolution. This is why it's so important to learn chords, because these ideas essentially come straight from the chord, just like how a pianist would look at the chord and, simply put, wiggle his fingers and grab the changes. You should be able to do that more or less on the guitar in the same fashion. So I showed you a D minor idea that was here, and then a G7 thing that was there, but how about here? Okay. All across the neck you should be able to do that. So, for example, I did it here before. These are basic shapes that are, based just on the chords in and of themselves. This is kind of a F major 7, which comes from D minor. Okay, this is another D minor shape, right? Or F major right here, and here as well. So that's all very important. This is why you have to learn the chords in tandem with your lines. So let me show you now a couple of ways to voice lead through this progression. So we're in C major, we're doing a 2-5-1. So if we just started on the 2, just using this basic idea again, now we're on the 3rd of G. Now we're on the 3rd of C. So that's one way to do it, is targeting the thirds, because the thirds will really give you a definite, like, this is the chord. Or how about we target the 9, so we resolve to the 9. So now we targeted the 9 there. Or we can target any note, but basically the idea is, let's say that our D minor idea stopped there. What would you do? The closest available tension of the G7 would be right there. That would be the flat 5 of G. I'm sorry, I meant flat 9. The flat 9 there will give you the opportunity then to nicely float into the C major. And that's all up to you, but of course, if you just study up on basic jazz language, you might be familiar with ideas like this, you know, or here as well. We can go from the sharp 9 as well. You know, or... So you gotta look at this in terms of target tones in the beginning. And after that, let your ear guide you through the resolution. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you guys learned something, and refer back to the notation, study up, and happy shedding.